This episode is called All Words Matter, and we'll be diving into the incredible impact of our invisible yet powerful words. Can something as simple as watching your own words help heal the world? Stay tuned to find out. Hey creators, welcome to Minding Your Amygdala, the brain, body, and behavior podcast where you'll learn to awaken to your emotions, get informed about your biology, and motivated to use skills to improve your mental health. I'm your host, Dr. Alauna, America's one and only trauma psychiatrist. Do you recognize the critical importance of emotions and mental health? Do you want to know more about how to self-recover from trauma? Do you want to better understand the updated science about how our brain and body shapes our behaviors? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you're in the right place. This podcast is focused on making complex brain science simple and usable. You'll learn the 6 primitive brain systems predictably programmed by trauma and empathy skills practice, my unique methodology that can help you improve your own T, thoughts, emotions, and actions. I'm the Skills Over Pills doc, but I'm also a mama 3, a busy entrepreneur, and a human being trying to make it through multiple global pandemics just like you. Minding Your Amygdala will teach you transformative ways that you can approach your day-to-day life, and I'll give you strategies to break free from the trauma cycle. All right, let's get started. Hey, creators. Welcome to another episode of Minding Your Amygdala podcast. I want to talk to you today about words and why words are so important. There's a song by India.Arie and Anthony David that goes, "Can't tell you nothing you ain't already heard. No matter what I say, it's nothing but words." Listen, just let me prove to you what I know is real. Let me express to you the way that I feel is the next lyrics of that song. And the reason that I started with that is because music for me has been so transformative and so healing. And it inspired this episode. All words matter. Why did I choose to focus a whole episode on the concept of words? It's because they are such an important mechanism for all of the struggles that are going on today. You know, we're living through what feels like unprecedented times, and there are a lot of words being thrown around, I would say irresponsibly. So I thought it was important to tackle this concept of words. So first, let's just start with defining what are words? Words are sounds that we have agreed upon their meaning. Now, when I say agreed upon, I'm doing air quotes. You can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes because truthfully, even the simplest words often can be interpreted differently by different people, depending on where you're from, depending on your cultural background, your religious background, the language that you speak. All of those factors come into play when the sounds that we call words are being passed around between all of us powerful creators. Now, if you are just joining the Dr. Alauna Minding Your Amygdala family, you may not know what I mean when I say creators. So I want you to know that I call every human being on earth a creator because that's what we are. I'm a creator, you're a creator, he's a creator, she's a creator. Wouldn't you like to be a creator too? The reason that I call us creators is because that's what we do inherent to our biology. Even if you're sitting still, laying still, or doing, quote, nothing, you are doing something. You're breathing, your heart is beating, you just laying still and being quiet. There's still creation happening inside of your body and outside of your body. So, words are the way that humans attempt to express ourselves and to gain understanding amongst each other. Words are extremely powerful, but they are very fragile. Because, first of all, they're invisible. You can't see them, you can hear them, you can read them. But what words mean is really shaped by the experiences that we've had in our life. When people use words like stupid and dumb and ugly, I hear those as subjective labels, label ways that they have been taught to interpret something that's going on in their environment, and they place words upon it that their brain can use to understand what's happening. Now, the tricky thing about words is that we often take for granted their meanings. We often have an interpretation of those words, and then we never stop to consider that other people may interpret those words very different than we do. They may have different meanings and definitions, especially for emotion words and things that humans don't talk about much, like compassion, anxiety, stress, depression, and addiction. We have a very clumsy language surrounding our feelings and the sensations that rumble through us. So there are even languages that do not have adequate words to describe some of the sensations and the circumstances that we feel. I've read about the English language and how it has soaked up so many other languages that it has a lot of descriptions for things that may not even be present or described in other languages. Now, of course, English is my language, so I know that there are people who speak other languages that will hear this. But the interesting part about it is that no matter what language you speak, words still function as sounds that have to come out of your brain, or sometimes you're talking to yourself. So it may also be words come out of your mouth back into your ears and into your brain. And words require interpretation. They fly across space. They smack the ears and the brain and the somatosensory cortex, your pain center in your brain of the other person, based on what the other person interprets of your words. So another point that I want to make is that miscommunication is guaranteed in human conversation. It's guaranteed. Miscommunication is inherent as part of the human experience because we often have a tendency to think that what we have said actually makes it across that space and into the other person's brain exactly the way that we meant it. And that is not how it happens. Because if you go back to the previous episode where I talked about the primitive brain systems and all of the different interpretation processes that are happening inside of our brain, then you'll understand what I mean when I say our perspective of each other is inherently skewed. Our brain is honing in on certain words or certain phrases, certain sentences, and then tuning others out because we have a reticular activating system. Or our amygdalas get charged up on one part of what someone says, and then they're still talking, but our brain is already forming our next communication based on how we felt about a portion of what they said. It's important for us to recognize that those invisible processes are happening because we often treat the superficial physical experience of being a human as if that's all that's happening. Like if I'm sitting talking to another person and they look like they're paying attention to me, then we often assume that what we are saying is being received on the other side exactly the way that we're saying it. And people's brains just do not absorb everything that's going on around them. In fact, we forget and skew many things just in the process of our brain trying to filter information for us. So I say all of that to really reinforce the importance of checking in to make sure that your words are having the impact that you intend. Because, and I write this down if you need to, your intent often will not equal your impact. Ooh, ouch. Okay, let me say it again. Just because you intend something with your words does not mean that that's the way that it lands on the other side. Often, our intent with our words does not equal the impact of how it lands on the other side. Many people would say, I'm just trying to help this person. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to point this out. I'm trying to keep you from harm. I'm trying to show you something that you don't know. However, words still have power to harm, even if it's not your intent. Okay? So checking in to make sure that you're not monologuing people and just talking over them, talking over their thought processes and not really recognizing that whether or not they're hearing you fully is an inherent part of human communication until we understand how our brains work. Now, the next point that I really, really, really want to reinforce is that words hurt. Yes, words can also heal. However, we need to really get into how words hurt people. Whoever said sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you, did not know what the heck they were talking about. They did not understand the biology. As I mentioned previously, we have a part of our brain called the somatosensory cortex. Your somatosensory cortex is the part of your brain that registers pain, and it does not differentiate between physical pain, like somebody slapping, kicking, pinching, or hitting you, from psychological pain, where someone may be jabbing you with their comments, nitpicking you with their offhand, nice, nasty compliments. People may slap you with their ignorant/innocent comments about a body part or a disability or something that you can't help or control. Or someone may flat out assault you with their words. You don't have to be cursing somebody out to harm them with words. You can undermine people's confidence. You can harm people with your own judgments and misjudgments when you are throwing words around and when words are being thrown at you, because we each have a somatosensory cortex. There's real pain signals that we're experiencing inside of our body that we have actually been desensitized to because we experience them so much. You know, when you experience pain on a regular basis, your body and your brain learns how to tune that out. But that is at the expense or the cost of you being fully present in your body and able to be fully present in the psychological space that you want to occupy. So it's important to let you know that your pain, it's real. It's not all in your head. It's not imaginary. You shouldn't just get over, quote, get over the painful things without at least acknowledging that those things were there and that that pain happened and that it hurts. I think it's so important for us to begin to validate that our words can be damaging. Now, there are the people that say, but I was just saying, I'm just saying IJS, right? I'm just saying. Well, guess what? There is no such thing as just saying something. As soon as those words are formed, they leave your mouth and they fly across space and they begin to do things to people. Now, we have a whole industry of comedy, and I love to laugh. I think comedy is so important. I also think that we're going through a time period where we're beginning to recognize that sometimes our jokes are not just jokes. They're not just funny. They may be funny to some people. However, they are legitimately harmful to others. And we're at that space in society where we're beginning to ask, is making one group of people laugh and, getting that dopamine going because we love things that feel good, right? Is the dopamine that we get from making half of the people laugh worth the pain and the damage that we cause the other half of the people that ain't laughing, or even the small majority of people who are not just not amused, but actively harmed, even possibly could be killed behind some of the emotions that are riled up when we make our jokes and when we have these spaces that we operate in, that where we don't have empathy for the way our experiences and our words land on other people. So the most important point of that is to point out that communication can be violent. Communication not only can be violent meaning damaging and painful, but communication is often damaging and violent. We live in a society where we have not heard, at least not in modern times, we have not heard people demonstrate communication that is calm, non-extreme, not designed to engage your emotions and trigger your amygdala and all the other biology in your body. Our headlines are designed to rouse you. So those words are designed to create invisible urges and surges in your body that make you click on that link, read that article, and give them those views, get them that money. Okay? So I've heard people say that words can't be violent because I'm not touching you. And I hope that through this podcast, you begin to understand that words absolutely can be violent. There's a whole industry around the concept of nonviolent communication and teaching humans how to get our point across without engaging in behaviors and using words that can be considered threatening or that are extreme or that are cause damage and move us away from our desired outcomes. It's really sad to me when I think about, if I go into the news and I read the news, I see extreme opinions. I see people using extreme phrasing just as commonalities. And you can see that across the board. I'm not talking about left or right, red or blue, Democrat, Republican. I'm talking about human behavior. I hear so many people using extreme words, name calling, making fun of people. And these are supposed to be the adults, the grown-ups, the folks who are supposed to be role models for a society that is healthy. So if our leaders are using toxic, violent words and phrasing, and on our television, our movies are violent and extreme, they bring out a lot of dopamine and a lot of stimulation. Our television shows encourage violence and extreme. Now, periodically, even we have the shows where people fight each other, and that gets ratings. So I'm pointing out that communication can be violent because we live in a society where we are so steeped in violent communication at baseline that we have to work extra hard within ourselves to correct the way that we think, because those words that we use out loud, they're also the words that we use to interpret ourselves and the words that we use to interpret how we do things. If you've ever made a mistake, like, oh, I'm so stupid, right? That is a common thought that someone may have. And even in that thought process, it is so subjective and toxic. I use acronyms to help people remember that primitive brain, right? Terrorizing, oppressive, extreme, intense, chaotic words and thought processes also drive the invisible processes in your mind. So the next point that I want to make is that words are fragile, yet they're so powerful to create things, because the words that you say to yourself create things inside of you. Your brain, and specifically your primitive brain and your amygdala, those systems create your internal experiences based on the words and the interpretation or the belief of what you tell yourself about any situation. If you tell yourself you're a failure and you can't do it and you're so stupid and this is ugly and no one will ever love you and that you're broken and that you're damaged, and whatever those words that you've been taught by whoever gave you that jacked up false information, is still working inside of your body and creating pain, creating anxiety, stress, grief, low self-esteem, self-doubt, and all types of other internal experiences. And then guess what? That drives experiences outside of you, experiences that invisibly affect the world around you, because your emotions exude energy beyond your physical self. You don't have to be even in person with somebody for those words to have impact. Something that someone said to you this morning may still be sitting on you in the evening or at night when you're trying to go to sleep, or the next week or month or years later. So words, although they are super fragile because they're just sounds that we have to interpret, words still drive the majority of psychological trauma. Okay? We're in a world right now that is on the verge of World War III, absolute chaos going on all over the world. And most of the way that we got here was not about people physically putting their hands on each other or doing things to each other. What drives people into this space is words, because words are psychological in nature. They are so powerful. So I want to also point out that we often try to make a distinction between verbal abuse and emotional abuse. But I want to point out that any non-physical traumatizing experiences really are driven by someone saying or doing something, and your brain also having to interpret those things. And then there comes the beliefs and the things that you tell yourself long after the initial experience. Are you with me? All right. So, a couple more points. Words are only about 20% of communication. The actual words that we choose are a very limited part of the exchange of information between human beings. 80% of communication is nonverbal. And when I say nonverbal elements, I'm talking about things like the tone that's used when the words are delivered, the volume of the words, the intensity of how those words may be said, or even the slang that's used will have some level of impact. The body language, the way the person is physically posturing themselves, facial expressions, how the eyebrows and the mouth and other things, those aspects are also interpreted to the sent to the other person's brain. And then interpretation is the big factor, right? Because the words, the delivery of the words, all of that still has to get from one human being to the others through their interpretation, through their primitive brain system, through all of this beastly, animalistic parts of us that make us react before we've truly processed. Because I want you to understand that what you say is not 100% what is heard. Ooh, my goodness. Please be aware that the words that you say are not exactly what the other person is experiencing, because we often hear the interpretation or what people mean or what we believe that they mean, not just the actual bread and butter words that they use, right? So, my last point, thoughts are also words. And when you consider that whatever language that you've been programmed to use is actively creating things inside of you, and no matter what language you speak or think in across the globe, the one communication system that all human beings have are emotions. Whew. Mm. And we barely have good words for those emotions, those internal invisible sensations and surges and urges that cause us to want to do things or not do things that need to be done. Our emotions are so powerful, yet we have not developed the emotional vocabulary to fully understand our own thought processes and the impact of our primitive brain and our primitive brain systems on our decision making. I hope you got that. I hope you got that. So, in closing, I want to remind you that every word that you think, every word that you speak, and every word that you act upon has power. Even if it's just the I'm just sayings or the jokes, the the little the little comments, just the little things that you think are not a big deal. I'm sorry to break it to you, but as a human, you have great power. Every single one of us is a animal, human, and spirit with big time biology that drives powerful psychology that leads to your choices, your actions, and decision making. So I challenge you in this next week to really, 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 really hone in and listen to your own words. What do you tell yourself? What are you saying on the inside, the part that people can't hear? And where is it driving that red, painful, negative, scratchy, itchy, primitive emotions? What fears do you manifest regularly because you are not recognizing the incredibly important language of emotions? Y'all, this is Dr. Alauna, trauma psychiatrist, signing off. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Minding Your Amygdala podcast. We are here to talk about your brain, your body, and your behavior. If you're enjoying this podcast, please rate and give us 5 stars and let us know how this is working for you. And also, if you have questions that you'd like for Dr. Alauna to answer in these episodes, please send it to askdralana@gmail.com. Okay, y'all be good.